All praise, glory, and honor is most certainly due to the Most High, the God of the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And peace to you in the name of Jesus. This is your brother Elisha Israel of the household of faith, and I count it truly a blessing each and every single time that I can come before you to preach the word of God. Never, ever do I count it as a light thing to do so. All right, brothers and sisters, I want to get right into today's topic. And the topic is, or the lesson is entitled, You Care About Numbers, but God Doesn't. You care about numbers, but God doesn't. You know, one thing we oftentimes, because we are carnal, because we are earthly, we oftentimes look in the natural. But when you're dealing with a supernatural being, when you're dealing with somebody who is beyond everything on this planet, he is the creator, created the world through his son. When you look at his power, you know, if he is on your side, there's nothing you can't do. And one of the ways he shows you this is the continually you see that being outnumbered doesn't mean anything when it comes to God, if him being on your side. Okay. Furthermore, also we shouldn't fall into the misconception, which you see a lot of times, that because a lot of people are somewhere, you must be doing the right thing because you got numbers, right? That's not necessarily the case. But let's start off in Deuteronomy, the 7th chapter, and look at the prime example of Israel and what he did for his people, why he chose them. This is Deuteronomy, the 7th chapter. We want to pick it up at verse 1. It says, when the Lord thy God shall bring thee into the land whither thou goest to possess it. Now, he had just brought them out of Egypt. Now, he brought them out of Egypt. Egypt was the mightiest nation at that time. He brought them out of Egyptian bondage, right? Not by their own might, but through his power. He manifested himself unto them, as well as to the Egyptians, showing you who God was. Well, Naaman, Ra, or Cyrus, or Horus, or Isis, none of those false gods. But he says, when the Lord thy God shall bring thee into the land whither thou goest to possess it, and have cast out many nations before thee. So now he said, you're going to cast out these nations. He said the Hittites and the Girgashites, and the Amorites and the Canaanites and the Perizzites and the Hivites and the Jebusites, 7 nations greater and mightier than thou. So now they're greater than you and they're stronger than you, right? But he says you're going to cast them out. Verse 7, he tells you something. He says, the Lord did not set his love upon you nor choose you, because ye were more in number than any people, for ye were the fewest of all people. Remember, Israel was just coming into nationhood. Right, when he manifested himself in Moses, they were not a nation yet. They're just coming in nationhood at this point. They went into Egypt with about 70 souls in the days of the patriarch Joseph, and then they grew into a large multitude that were brought out. But they still were just a group of people. They weren't totally a nation. You are not totally a nation until you have they have a constitution or something to live by, some culture. They had their faith, they had their constitution, and you must have land. Okay, so now they're coming into that, and he's going to cast out these other nations, right? Because their cup of iniquity has reached its brim. Like he told Abraham in Genesis, you know, the Amorites' iniquity had not yet reached its full, but now at this time it has. So they're among the ones that's getting cast out, and they're going to come into the promised land of Canaan. But it wasn't because they had all the numbers, because it wasn't like he said, okay, you're going to take this land, you're going to get this land, and that was it. They had to go in and they had to take it. That's when Joshua and Caleb went in and spied the land. They said, it's good land, let's take it. The others said, there's giants in the land. They were afraid. They were cowards. Even though God told you it's your land, see, that shows you're going to have to do something. If you want it, you're going to have to do something to get it. If he's giving it to you and showing you can have it, it's something you have to do to go and get it. So it said, the Lord did not set his love upon you, nor choose you, because ye were more in number than any people, for ye were the few of all people. Right? He said, but because the Lord loves you, and because he would keep the oath which he has sworn unto your fathers, hath the Lord brought you out with a mighty hand and redeemed you out of the house of bondmen from the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. See, he's the one that did it. And he was keeping his covenant that he had made with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. But let's go to Leviticus, the 26th chapter. Because when God is on your side, it doesn't matter what anybody else is saying. It don't matter what anybody else is doing. It really doesn't matter. Leviticus is 26th chapter. And we're going to pick it up at verse 8 because I'm going to pick it up at verse 7 because he talked about how if Israel would just be obedient to what thus saith the Lord, then they would be prosperous. Let's see what he said. Leviticus, the 26th chapter, verse 7. Well, verse 6, he says, and I will give you peace in the land, and ye shall lie down, and none shall make you afraid, and I will rid evil beasts out of the land, neither shall the sword go through your land. So that's if we're obedient. That's if you walk in, he said, if you walk in my statutes and keep my commandments and do them, you're going to get rain in due season. Your land going to yield its increase. Your threshing shall reach unto the vintage. Then he says, I give you peace in the land. Then he says in verse 7, and ye shall chase your enemies, and they shall fall before the sword. Then it's fall before you by the sword. Then he says, and 5 of you shall chase 100, and 100 of you shall put 10,000 to flight, and your enemy shall fall before you by the sword. See, this is the God we serve. So you shouldn't look at the obstacle and think, oh, you can't do it because you outnumbered. You heard that term, outnumbered and outgunned? Well, with God, it don't matter, because even like Elisha told his servant, he said, listen, open his eyes that he may see. And he saw a innumerable amount of angels, many angels he saw, right? Because you dealing with somebody that's more powerful than any other entity on this planet, any other army. It don't matter. Let's go to Deuteronomy, the 32nd chapter. So if that be the case, it works just the opposite, right? See, when you get out of God's good graces, when you are not on his side, when you are becoming enemy unto him, like Israel has become as a people, it don't matter what you do. It don't matter how many people you have. You are out of pocket. Deuteronomy, the 32nd chapter and verse 26, because here he tells them what was going to happen. He said, I said I would scatter them into corners. I would make the remembrance of them to cease from among men. And that's what has happened. That's what's happened. Israel is a scattered people, like a speckled bird amongst all the other birds facing oppression. He said, were it not that I fear the wrath of the enemy. I'm going to skip down a little bit. This is Deuteronomy 32nd chapter and verse 30. He said, how shall one chase 1,000 and two put 10,000 to flight, except their rock has sold them, and the Lord has shut them up? What does he mean the rock has sold? Meaning the rock, hey, he's the one. He's our strength. He's our power. But when we deny him, when we turn our back on him, when we despise and reject him, when we disobey him, now he's not on your side, so your enemy can come upon you, and you can look and say, oh, I'm going to smash them and get crushed, just like an AI. When they ain't even send everybody up in AI during the days of Joshua, they sent a few. And they were getting smashed. Why? Because Israel had done something that was out of pocket. They had took the Babylonians' garments that they shouldn't have taken. But let's go to let's go to Judges. So that just should show you it works both ways. But let's go to Judges. This should show you, numbers don't necessarily matter during times of oppression. And we should keep this in our minds, because we can look at the world. Nothing that you see shows us that we as a people can get out of this situation. Nothing you see could show you that the enemies that you have, that you can defeat them. Nothing. Why? Because they have all of the weaponry, they have all of the technology, they have the things that you depend on. But there's a God in heaven that can provide and can make a way. Listen, all we have to do as a people is turn back to God. That's it. And I don't care what anybody have to say. I don't care what anybody has. He'll hear our cries and move for us. But this is Judges, the 7th chapter. But getting them to do it, Israel to do it, is more than a notion. It's more than a notion. Like I having this conversation, I heard I was talking about this boxer, and he hit real hard. Right, this is just an example. And one guy say, "Listen, hey, you can beat this guy. He hit extremely hard, but you can beat this guy if you could push him backward, because he can't fight going backwards." He said, "This was his words were, but good luck pushing them backwards." See, Israel, one thing about Israel, all we got to do is something so simple, but being stiff-necked, hard-headed, ignorant makes it difficult. Even though it's a very simple thing. You look at the prayers dedication that Solomon made, we see all Israel has to do when they're even in the land of their enemies. But here, just to show you an example, when it comes to oppression, you shouldn't look at numbers and think you can't win. So now this is Judges, the 7th chapter. I want to pick it up in verse 1. Then Zerubbabel, who is Gideon, and all the people that were with him rose up early and pitched beside the well of Hedar, so that the host of the Midianites were on the north side of them by the hill of Moreh in the valley. See, the Midianites were oppressing Israel. Israel, you see it in Judges, they went through a perpetual cycle of sin, getting oppressed by enemies, crying out to God, being delivered, and going back into sin. That's what you see consistently, like a circle. Okay? So it says in verse 2, and the Lord said unto Gideon, the people that are with thee are too many for me to give the Midianites their hands, lest Israel vaunt themselves against me, saying, mine own hand has saved me. So he said, listen, I don't want these foolish people to think that they saved themselves. So you got too many, right? Verse 3, now therefore go to proclaim in the ears of the people, saying, whosoever is fearful and afraid, let him return and depart early from Mount Gilead. So now they about to go to war. He giving them out. He said, listen, if you don't want to come right now, go. Then it says, whosoever is fearful and afraid, let him return and depart early from Mount Gilead, and there return of the people 20 and 2,000, and there remain 10,000. Verse 4. And the Lord said unto Gideon, the people are yet too many. Bring them down into the water, and I will try them for thee there. And it shall be that of whom I say unto thee, this shall go with thee, the same shall go with thee. And of whomsoever I say unto thee, this shall not go with thee, the same shall not go. So he's telling them who's going to go with him and who's not going to go with him. Verse 5. So he brought down the people unto the water, and the Lord said unto Gideon, everyone that lappeth of the water with his tongue as a dog lappeth, him shalt thou set by himself. Likewise, everyone that boweth down upon his knees to drink. So the one that's lapping like a dog, right? He said, hey, set them aside. Verse 6. And the number of them that lapped, putting their hand to their mouth, were 300 men. But all the rest of the people bowed down upon their knees to drink water. And the Lord said unto Gideon, by the 300 men lapped will I save you, and deliver the Midianites into thine hand, and let all the other people go, every man unto his place. See, again, he don't need a bunch of numbers. He don't need a bunch of numbers. He's God. He said, listen, I'll deliver you with this group. Let's see another example of this. Let's go to just to show you the mindset that God can deliver. Let's go to, we're going to go to 1 Samuel, the 14th chapter. 1 Samuel, the 14th chapter. You don't have to be a whole bunch of people to do something great. 1 Samuel, the 14th chapter and verse 1. 1 Samuel, the 14th chapter, we're going to pick it up at verse 1. Because here we see the example of Jonathan and his mindset. It says in verse 1, it says, now this Israel is before the Philistines, right? It said, now it came to pass, and they get into business. But it says, and now it came to pass on the day that Jonathan, the son of Saul, said unto the young man that bare his armor, come and let us go over to the Philistines' garrison, that it is on the other side. But he told not his father. So he's going and he tell his father. And Saul, his father, tarried in the uttermost part of Gibeon under a pomegranate tree. which is in Migron. And the people that were with him were about 600 men. So now he got about 600. Let's skip down to verse 6, because this is see his mindset. And Jonathan said to the young man that bare his armor, come and let us go over unto the garrison of these uncircumcised. It may be that the Lord will work for us, for there is no restraint to the Lord to save by many or by few. With God, it don't matter. He could save by many or by few. Why? Because he's God. He's omnipotent. He's omnipotent, and he can show that he is God through working through a few people. Let's go to see another example. Let's go to 2 Chronicles. So here we see, and what Jonathan, Saul's son, said was true. 2 Chronicles, the 14th chapter. Let's see this example with Asa, because here we're going to see a difference in numbers, right? This is 2 Chronicles, the 14th chapter, verse 8. Because here Zerah, the Ethiopian, comes to fight Asa. And let's see how many people Asa had. It says in verse 7, excuse me, this is 2 Chronicles 14 and 8. It says, and Asa had an army of men that bare targets and spears out of Judah, 300,000, and out of Benjamin that bare shields and drew bows, 280,000. All these were mighty men of valor. So on one hand, he had 300,000. On the other hand, he had, it said 280,000, right? That's 280,000. So it says, and there came out against them Zerah the Ethiopian. Now listen to how many people the Zerah had. It said, and there came out against them Zerah the Ethiopian with an host of 1,000,000. Okay. Now whether or not that's a figurative saying, but that 1,000,000 is 1,000,000. So whether they meant he literally had 1,000,000 people, one thing's for sure, he had way more people than Asa. Okay, so verse 9 again, it says, and there came out against them Zerah the Ethiopian with a host of 1,000,000 and 300 chariots, and came unto Merrillville. Then Asa went out against him, and they set the battle in array in the valley of Ziphatah at Merrillville. And Asa, listen to what Asa did though. Asa, who was a righteous king, he cried unto the Lord his God. He cried unto the Lord his God and said, Lord, it is nothing with thee to help, whether with many or with them that have no power. Help us, O Lord our God, for we rest on thee. And in thy name we go against this multitude. O Lord, thou art God, let not man prevail against thee. So the Lord smote the Egyptians. Listen to what it said. The Lord smote the the Ethiopians. So it's verse 12 again. So the Lord smote the Ethiopians before Asa and before Judah, and the Ethiopians fled. See, it's not about what it looks like. It's not about what it looks like when you depending on the Lord. Let's go to see another example. Let's go to 1 Kings. I want to pick it up in the 19th chapter. 1 Kings, the 19th chapter, and verse 35. 1 Kings and 2 Kings. I said 1 Kings. 2 Kings, the 19th chapter, and verse 35. So now this is when Sennacherib and the Assyrians come, right? This is when King Hezekiah is king. Now he got 185,000. Well, he have. Let's just see what the Lord did to 185,000 in one night. And you can line this up with history. You can look in history and see this event. It says, and they were out there talking big and bad, right? And Hezekiah prayed, right? He prayed. Listen, I'm going to pick it up in 2 Kings, the 19th chapter, and verse in verse 15. Well, I'm going to pick it up in verse 14. Because this Sennacherib was defying God. I'm going to pick it up in verse 8. It says, so this is 2 Kings 19 and 8. It says, so Rabshakeh returned and found the king of Assyria warring against Libnah, for he had heard that he was departed from Lachish. And when he heard say of Turkah, king of Ethiopia, behold, he has come out to fight against thee. He sent messages again unto Hezekiah, saying, thus shall ye speak to Hezekiah, king of Judah, saying, let not thy God in whom thou trustest deceive thee. Now, this the same God in Asa's days. He said, we trusting in you, basically. We leaning on you. But this the fire of the true and living God, he gonna say, hey, let not the God in whom thou trustest deceive thee, saying, Jerusalem shall not be delivered into the hand of the king of Assyria. Behold, thou hast heard what the kings of Assyria have done to all lands by destroying them utterly. And shalt thou be delivered? So he said, how you gonna be delivered? We smashing everybody, right? We crushing everybody. You don't want that work. You think you're gonna get by? He said, have the gods of the nations delivered them, which my fathers have destroyed, as Goshen and Haran, as Rizpah, and the children of Eden, which were in Elasar? Where is the king of Hamath, and the king of Arpad, and the king of the city of Sepharvaim, of Henna and Eva? So he's saying, listen, what about them? Did they gods deliver them? No, they didn't. But that they gods are no gods. See, Hezekiah was dealing with the true and living God, the God of Israel. So when he got the letter, it says, and Hezekiah received the letter in the hand of the messenger and read it, and Hezekiah went up into the house of the Lord and spread it before the Lord. So now that's almost like psychological warfare. You're going to send somebody a letter and say, listen, man, you better get down and lay down. You don't see all these people, all these nations we done destroyed. You see all these nations we done destroyed. What's going to be different with you? You might as well give up now. Man, that's psychological warfare. Because you know they're stronger than you. Right? Physically. So now he takes the letter and spreads it before the Lord in the house of the Lord. And spread it, it says in Hezekiah in verse 15, and Hezekiah prayed before the Lord and said, O Lord God of Israel, which dwelleth between the cherubims, thou art the God, even thou alone, of all the kingdoms of the earth, thou hast made heaven and earth. See, when you talking about one that's over all the kingdoms, when you talk about the one that's created the heaven and earth, you don't have to be concerned with somebody else's numbers who is flesh. He said, Lord, bow down thine ear and hear, open, Lord, thine eyes and see and hear the words of Sennacherib, which have sent him to reproach the living God. He said, you see what this man is saying? It says, of a truth, Lord, the kings of Assyria have destroyed the nations and their lands and have cast their gods into the fire, for they were no gods, but the work of men's hands, wood and stone. Therefore, they have destroyed them. See, that's the difference. They didn't understand that. The Assyrians, they didn't understand that those gods or those people were no gods. Those were made up in the vain imaginations of men, and they molded them and fashioned them and shaped them and worshiped them. He said, now therefore, O Lord our God, I beseech you, save thou us out of his hand, that all the kingdoms of the earth may know that thou art the Lord God, even thou only. Let's skip down to verse 35. And it came to pass that night that the angel of the Lord went out and smote the camp of the Assyrians and 185,000. And when they arose early in the morning, behold, they were all dead corpses. Okay, so it's in one angel and killed 185,000 men. Now, how that transpired in the physical, because you read, it's certain you can read about this in history. Okay, because Sennacherib had to return, and then when he went, his sons killed him. Went back, his sons killed him. You can read about this in history, and it'll say, oh, some rats, they're a plague, or whatever. However, it manifested himself in the physical. Understand that spiritually, the Lord was behind it. And that's what I'm saying. So what looked like in the physical realm, spiritually, it could be something totally different going on. That's like Pharaoh said, yeah, I got him. He had him pinned by the Red Sea. Man, the Lord opened the Red Sea. They walked through it. And that's this fool. You got to be a fool. That's foolish. You gonna follow. You just saw the Red Sea split before these people. You saw the firstborn dead. You seen all these plagues. And then the Red Sea opened. And you said, man, let's follow him. Man, I couldn't have been one of them. I'd have been waiting back like, hold on. I can't even do it. I can't even do it. I can't even do it. I ain't gonna be able to do it. I ain't gonna be able to walk through and follow these people that the God, they God is obviously on their side. And he just opened that water up and they walking on dry ground on a land bridge. Because that's probably what it was. So I can't even do it. Sorry, not gonna be able to do it. They're like, well, come on. I'm like, hold on. I might have to go with them. Like a lot of them Egyptians did, because they saw that was a true and living God. But let's go to Hebrews. Because the author of Hebrews recounts, all these things that were done out of faith. See, it takes faith. When you look at each one of those cases, Gideon, even though you saw him, he was apprehensive. If you read earlier on about Gideon, you had to have faith to do what he did, to go against the Midianites. You look at Jonathan and what he did. Jonathan was like, man, let's go. You had to have faith. Hezekiah, that took faith. Asa, all that, the odds were against him. Again, they outnumbered and outgunned. But with God, it don't matter. Hebrews, the 11th chapter, we're going to pick it up at verse 1. Because it said, now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Right? So they didn't see it. It didn't look like they could have a deliverance. It didn't look like they could have victory. But they did. Why do you think this is just good reading, brothers and sisters? Or is this something you can apply into your own life? Let's pick it up at verse 32. Hebrews 11 and verse 32. I'm going to pick it up. It says, and what shall I more say, for the time would fail me to tell of Gideon and of Barak and of Samson and of Jephthah, of David also. And look at David on the run. What? Nothing could have told you how it was looking. While he on the run, Saul trying to kill him. You're talking about a king that got an army. You have few men. They're wise. You know what they have? You on the run. Nothing's telling you naturally that everything's going to be okay. It says, who through faith subdued kingdoms, wrought righteousness. It says, obtain promises, stop the mouths of lions, quench the violence of fire, escape the edge of the sword, out of weakness were made strong. Wax valiant and fight, turn to flight the armies of the aliens. All this was done. How? Because they had faith. Because they had faith, brothers and sisters. So no matter what the numbers would look like, Romans the 11th chapter. See, when God's on your side, what can't you do? And even we should apply that even in our service to Him. When He's on our side, you can do it all that He would have you to do. This is Romans the 11th chapter. It might be hard though. Romans the 8th chapter. We're going to pick it up at verse 28. Romans 8 and verse 28. It says here, and we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, and to them who are the called according to His purpose. Right? So it says, for whom He did foreknow, He also did predestinate to be conformed to the image of His Son, that He might be the firstborn among many brothers. Moreover, whom He did predestinate, them He also called, and whom He called, them He also justified, and whom He justified, them He also glorified. What shall we say? What shall we then say to these things? If God be for us, who can be against us? You understand? If God be for, I don't care who's out there. I don't care. Look at the mindset of David. David's fighting a giant. He like, man, I'm about to kill this uncircumcised Philistine. You about to die. Who was this uncircumcised Philistine that had defied the armies of the living God? Everybody else scared. He's like, man, I done killed a lion in the bear. You're gonna be like one. You're gonna be like that lion in that bear. I'm gonna kill you. He got a sword, man. He picked up 5 smooth stones. He said, man, just want to do. Just want to do. Let's go to Matthew the 18th chapter. See, we worried about numbers. God's not worried about numbers. And even in your service of Him, again, it's not about everybody coming to serve, about who's going to serve Him. He told His disciples, many of His disciples left, right? He said, matter of fact, let's see. Give me one moment. This is what does it say? This is, I thought it was right here. Hold on one second. Give me one second. Because it don't matter, brothers and sisters, about what it looked like, about the numbers. We are worried about numbers. He is not worried about numbers. Hold on one second. Okay, John the 6th chapter. I'm right here. John the 6th chapter. Okay. What is it? John the 6th chapter and verse 53. Oh, actually, at verse 51. John 6 and 51. He says, I am the living bread which came down from heaven. If any man eat of this bread, he shall live forever. And the bread that I will give is my flesh, which I will give for the life of the world. So now he's telling them something spiritually, and they don't understand. And it said, the Jews therefore struggle among themselves, saying, how can this man give us his flesh to eat? Now he's not telling them literally to eat his flesh. Okay. But nevertheless, they say something here. They said in verse, after he said this thing, he said, eat my flesh and drink my blood. They're like, what? Verse 6, he said, many therefore of his disciples, when they had heard this, said, this is an hard saying, who can hear it? When Jesus knew in himself that his disciples murmured at it, he said unto them, doth this offend you? What and if you shall see the Son of Man ascend up where he was before? It is the spirit that quickeneth, the flesh profiteth nothing. The words that I speak unto you, they are spirit and they are life. So that's what's gonna give you life, brothers and sisters. The word that he's speaking. The word. He said, but there are some of you that believe not, for Jesus knew from the beginning who they were that believed not and who should betray him. And he said, therefore said I unto you that no man can come unto me except it were given unto him of my Father. Then it says something. From that time, many of his disciples went back and walked no more with him. Now, many then left. Listen to the response or the words of Jesus, because he's not, oh man, look at my followers, they leaving. See, like the false prophet today worried about numbers. We got churches, they be talking so bold, they boastful and bragging about a bunch of numbers, about a bunch of people on their way on a highway to hell dealing with this false prophet. We got 30,000 people. So what? Y'all all going in the wrong direction. But nevertheless, he says, from that time, many of his disciples went back and walked no more with him. Listen what Jesus said. Then said Jesus unto the 12. Now you got 12 left. Or 12 that he's talking to. He said, will ye also go away? Me, you leaving too? He said, you going to? It wasn't like I'm about to beg you. But he already knew. But at the same time, it's like, And then Simon Peter answered him, Lord, to whom shall we go? Thou hast the words of eternal life. So he understood what he was saying about the words that he spoke. He wasn't literally telling them to engage in cannibalism. But now let's go to Matthew the 18th chapter. Because we had those misconceptions about numbers. Oh, it's a lot. It's a lot. Actually, Matthew the 7th chapter. It's a 7th chapter. Matthew 7. It's a lot of us. See? But many of us are listening right now. We're in little pockets, right? You might be in your home. He says something here. Verse 13, Matthew 7 and 13. He said, enter ye in at the straight gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction, and many there be which go in thereat. You are coming out of the world. The world is a huge multitude. Billions of people, including some of the people in your own household, can be a part of the world. And that's something to go against. To come up and say, no, I'm not going to go with the crowd. I'm not going to go with the herd that's going a broad way that leads into destruction. And that's where many people are going. He said, because straight is the gate and narrow is the way which leadeth unto life, and few there be that find it. It's not about big numbers. It's not about big numbers. You're talking about salvation, only a few. When you think about it in the days of Noah. Man began to multiply upon the earth. Man's thoughts were on evil continually. He was wicked. The Lord said, I'm going to destroy man from all the face of the earth, whom I have created. It repented me that I have made him. But Noah found grace. And Noah, the Bible tells you, was a preacher of righteousness. So now he's a preacher of righteousness, because righteousness was there even before the law was officially given. You had instruction before it was officially given to Israel. So he's building an ark. If that's not faith, brothers and sisters, I mean, the sun's shining, but he building the ark talking about it's going to rain. What you building that ark for? Man, the Lord has shown me it's going to rain. You better get your house together. Get yourself together. Come on in the ark. Man, you crazy. And the Lord, it started to rain. Noah got in that ark. His family, the animals got in that ark. And it said the Lord shut him in. Can you imagine people hanging on the ark? It's just raining. The Lord shut him in. And now 8 souls saved. Look at Lot coming out of Sodom and Gomorrah. It's going to be like that when the Lord returns. The earth going to be burned, a few men left. Who wants salvation? Obviously, most people aren't doing what's necessary when you look at what's going on, because everybody doing that which is contrary to the word of God. So it said, enter in at the straight gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the way that leads to destruction. And many there be which go in thereat. Because, peace to you. It said, because straight is the gate and narrow is the way which leadeth unto life, and few there be that find it. Matthew the 18th chapter. Matthew the 18th chapter, we want to pick it up at I'm just picking up at verse 20. And this will be it. Matthew the 18th chapter and verse 20. Because again, like I stated, many of us in little pockets here and there trying to serve God. But one thing we should understand, it's not about numbers. It's about who's going to serve him. Matthew the 18th chapter and verse 20, it says, for where 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name, there am I in the midst of them. So I'm in the midst of you, even though you few in number. You're just 2, just 3, but there I am. And with that, brothers and sisters, I want to remind you that we're at the House of the Faith meet every Sabbath at 5925 West 25th Avenue in Gary, Indiana, at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. Again, that's every Sabbath, which is Saturday at 5925 West 25th Avenue in Gary, Indiana. 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. We live stream right here on the Israel Teach YouTube channel. We also live stream at www.israelteach.org. That's our website. If you've been edified, all praise to the Most High. If you've been edified by the message, you can give donations. You can do that via the internet, via our website. Again, www.israelteach.org. 100% of the donations goes to the ministry. We do not get paid. Money's not going in our pockets, just so you know. What else? Also, if you've been edified, like the video, subscribe, share, because that's how YouTube spreads it, from my understanding, which is limited, because this is not a monetized page. And with that, brothers and sisters, it's always my peace to everybody that's listening. I hope you're doing maintaining during this time where people get more foolish than usual, right? And with that, brothers and sisters, it's always my prayer that you will edify.